okay, can I sit down because the chair sat down? I'm just going to imitate the chair because I've just got notes in front of me and I think it might make it a little bit awkward if I'm not, if I can't see them clearly. So thank you very much for the organisers. First of all, I'd like to thank, actually, well done to Salia Mahmood Ahmed. Do you know who she is?
Yay, man.
Okay, so for winning MasterChef 2017 last year. Okay, so the Islamophobes added, pulling their hair out last time. Another Muslim to join Nadia Begum as well, who went Begum a couple of years ago. But this is fantastic that we see natural counter narratives being displayed right in front of our eyes as well. What I want to do basically today is just to set the context of what is actually happening. If you've heard about the Islamophobia industry or professional Islamophobia, that is what that is what we are experiencing, that is what we are seeing, that is what is being organized as well. So there are networks, there's money, there's individuals, there are aims and objectives, primarily with the fear that the West is being subjected to an aggressive and politicized Islamic invasion or takeover. And to stop this, we have seen the emergence of the counter-jihad movement, the so-called counter-jihad movement, aiming to stop the Islamization of the West. And this is all real. We've taken the majority of our quotes and work from Professor David Miller of Spinwatch, also professor at the University of Bath as well. So it is very important to understand this counter-jihad movement, the Islamophobia industry, the Islamophobia network, and professional Islamophobia. There's a lot of journalists and people making quite a lot of money from being professional Islamophobes as well. Two important things and two important themes that run through the European counter-jihad rhetoric. First is that Islam and Muslims living in Europe are a threat to Western civilization. And number two, check this out, left-wing political elites, and the EU especially, cannot be trusted. Because this is the base of the counter-jihad movement, I guess. I guess the calling of these loonies can be summed up from the counter-jihad manifesto, Gates of Vienna. I'm not sure if you're aware of this blog. But they have quoted saying, Islam is above all a totalitarian political ideology, sugar-coated with the trappings of a primitive desert religion to help veil its true nature. The publicly stated goal of Islamic theology and political ideology is to impose the rule of Islam over the entire world and make it part of Dar al-Islam, meaning the house of submission. Widely accepted Islamic theology based on Quranic doctrine explicitly requires that Islam be spread by and all means necessary, including by violence and mass slaughter, in a process known as jihad or holy war. The fact that many Muslims do not support and engage in violent jihad is not germane. Now this is the context. This discourse then continues to malign immigrants and refugees from countries that we have directly or indirectly invaded over the last couple of decades. And it further states to resist further Islamization of Western countries by eliminating Muslim immigration, refusing special accommodations for Islam in our public spaces and institutions, forbidding intrusive public display of practice. And further, to develop a grassroots network that will replace the existing political class in our countries and eliminate the reigning multicultural ideology which enables Islamization and will cause the destruction of Western civilization if left in place. This is the discourse. Hence we see the xenophobia, the racism, and the Islamophobia. When it comes to free speech and Muslims, it's about defending the right to offend, usually by demeaning minorities, which has become a favorite pastime of counter-jihadists and all of those within the Islamophobia industry as well. And they work through this, and when they talk about working through the state, they always push that far-right violence is often lone wolf terrorism. And also think that while no government has gone as far as the counter-jihad movement would like, it applauds moves by some governments towards limiting immigration and institutionalizing Islamophobia. Basically, there are supporters of this narrative in very influential positions in Europe and the United States of America. And the three main fears of these folks is immigration, the fear of Sharia law, and mosque creation. There are many groups like the Stop of Islamization of Denmark, which has spawned the SIO of Europe, meaning stop the Islamization of Europe, stop the Islamization of Deutschland, stop the I'm getting tongue twisted here. I'm just going to SIO. SIO France, SIO England, SIO America, collectively known as Stop the Islamization of Nations, SION. The EDL replicated in Scotland, Germany, Norway, and the German movement Pegida has inspired copycat movements in countries including Austria, Sweden, and the UK, and of course you have Britain first in this country as well. Is that making sense so far? Not only this, but there are a number of think tanks in this country, and of course on a global level, government-supported community organizations, political parties, and the so-called street fighting forces that are knowingly or unknowingly perpetuating the Islamophobic landscape. And some of these organizations include Quilliam Foundation, the Henry Jackson Society, its offshoot Student Rights, the Center for Response to the Radicalization and Terrorism, which produced a briefing titled Banking Restriction and Extremism, Linked Muslim Groups, which coincidentally profiled primarily Muslim organizations. We've also got the Knights Templar International, whose website features constant negative coverage of Muslims, the Abstraction Fund from the United States, whose treasurer Nina Rosenwald has been dubbed as the sugar mama of anti-Muslim hate. And this organization has donated 70% of its total funds to the two Islamophobic groups, including Gatestone Institute and Henry Jackson Society. And there are individuals at it as well, and some we may know already. For example, Anne-Marie Waters, who planned to host an exhibition of the cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in September 2014, and thankfully it was cancelled over safety fears. But she also founded Voice alongside Tommy Robinson to help FGM victims, and filmed at Marias events saying people need to be deported and mosques need to be closed. Other politicians that have perpetuated this narrative include Nigel Farage, who has said that Muslims have conflicting loyalties, or British Muslims have conflicting loyalties in this country. There's also Baroness Caroline Cox, who has claimed polygamy and discrimination against women are rife among UK Muslims, and has tried hard to close down Sharia courts. Baron Malcolm Pearson in 2013 claimed that Muslim birth rate was too high, and that many hated Britain. Baron Daniel Finkelstein, who is the governor of the Gatestone Institute, a body that promotes the forced deportation of Muslims. Paul Weston leads the far-right Pegida UK and has claimed that Islam would cause more death and destruction in Europe than communism or Nazism ever did. And there's Roger Helmer, Conservative MEP, also believing Muslim groups patrol communities and try to impose Sharia law. Then there's Gerard Batten, UKIP's MEP, has called for an end to the building of mosques, a ban on halal slaughter, and a halt on the legal recognition of Islamic banking. So there are very important, influential people who are perpetuating a very Islamophobic discourse. And then we move on to some of the media professional Islamophobes, which include Breitbart, the news network. Have you heard of the Breitbart? Yeah. Absolutely awful. James Delingpole, one of its founders, has said that EDL's reputation is much worse than their deeds in reality. So these are some of the things that they're talking about. There's Raheem Kassam as well, an ex-Muslim British political activist and editor and co-founder-in-chief of Breitbart. And he said, if someone like me, a brown person, isn't profiled or isn't asked questions at airport, I would be really concerned. So in essence, they're legitimizing racial profiling in a very big sense as well. Douglas Murray, Associate Director of Henry Jackson Society, has claimed that conditions for Muslims in Europe must be made harder across the board so that Europe would appear to be a less attractive proposition. Melanie Phillips, Katie Hopkins, Andrew Gilligan, Dominic Kennedy, all seem to be talking a particular discourse which is very anti-Islam and anti-Muslim as well. All in all, we have seen that government policies around Muslims have often been influenced by right-wing politicians, think tanks, media reporting, and political intelligence circles. So coming over to Prevent, this is why policies like Prevent are gaining a bit more popularity within these circles, even though it's been heavily